Welcome to Built for This, the podcast where purpose meets performance. Hosted by business strategist and human behavior specialist Carly Pepin, this show dives into the real stories behind high-growth businesses. Let's bring life to your vision.
Hey guys, so welcome back. I have a really exciting show for you today. I have Jessica Yarmey with me, and she was recently named president of Squeeze Massage following the brand's acquisition by wellness conglomerate GoSaga. With 12 locations nationwide, including its flagship in Studio City, California, Squeeze delivers a way better massage experience through thoughtfully designed spaces, an intuitive app, and a guest-centered approach. A seasoned franchise and brand leader, Yarmey brings more than 25 years of experience growing global brands, including Gold's Gym, Burger King, and Club Pilates, where she served as CMO during its rise to becoming the world's largest Pilates franchise. She later founded KickHouse Fitness, scaling the concept from 0 to 30 locations before its acquisition by Mayweather Boxing and Fitness in 2022. In her new role, Yarmey is focused on accelerating Squeeze's national expansion, strengthening its franchise network, and making accessible tech-enabled self-care more widely available. So welcome, Jessica. It's so good to have you.
Thank you so much for that intro. I feel like I've got to step up to that on a Friday afternoon here.
That's awesome. Funny enough, as I was reading your bio, I just interviewed someone who was at Club Pilates and they transitioned. I don't know if you guys had crossed paths, but Anthony Badalian.
Sure. Yeah,
He's
Anthony and I
in.
worked together. Yeah, he
Okay,
was on the
cool.
sales side and I was on the marketing side.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he definitely shared the sales dynamic and stuff, but now he's transitioned to another franchise as well. So it sounds like you guys got some great experiences over there.
It was a great experience and it is such a small world in fitness franchising. And so once you're in with the right people, you just kind of stay there and you talk with all the same folks doing all the same things and it's just with different brands. So now I'm stepping into my new brand, which is Squeeze Massage.
Okay. And that's really exciting. And tell me a little bit about what you personally love about franchising, because I know, you've gone and you've worked in the corporate world. You can go to many different places. What keeps pulling you back into franchising?
I ended up stepping into franchising back in 2008, and I almost did so accidentally. I was more so interested in a role at an advertising agency, and it just so happened to be the client that I was working on was a franchise brand. It was Burger King. And it was really a throw yourself into the deep end of franchising because the Burger King franchise system is one of the most complicated franchise systems that you could know. But I just learned a lot about the business structure and about how it empowers small entrepreneurs who want to own their own businesses to be a part of something bigger. And so now, as I'm growing Squeeze Massage, I'm really looking to create a kind of culture that empowers entrepreneurial minded people to come in and really be a part of our team. And so they do own their business on their own, but they're a part of a bigger system and they have the support of the franchisor and they have the support of the bigger Squeeze Massage family. So I think it's just a nice like splitting the difference between a corporate environment and very much an entrepreneurial environment.
That's very cool. And I'm curious as well, just to give us a little bit more info about Squeeze. I forgot to ask you that first, but I just want to make sure everyone understands exactly what Squeeze does. I know we got a little bit in the bio, but some more details would be great.
Yeah, Squeeze is a national massage franchise. Like you said, we have 12 locations across the country, and we do offer a way better massage experience. And that comes to life via thoughtfully designed spaces, intuitive booking app, and just being very guest centric in our approach. So, all of our technology empowers all of our experiences to be very customized and very personalized for guests who come into our shops. So it's not just a cookie cutter massage experience that you experience, but you really get a fully customized, this is for Carly kind of experience based on, what you've selected in all of our technology. So it's meant to be very personalized, which I think is important when you do carve the time to, to take care of yourself, that it is something that's exactly made for you.
Okay, very, very cool. And I'm curious too, because something you mentioned about Burger King was that it's just one of the most complicated franchise models. But was there items that you've pulled in that you learned from that dynamic that even though it's complicated, you find works really well for Squeeze? Are there things that were overcomplicated that you're like, I don't want to do this to our franchisees kind of dynamic? Tell me a little bit more about the things that you've brought forward and the things that you kind of decided to leave behind.
I think one of the most important parts of any franchise system is just having a good process around communication and transparency. And for Burger King, that meant DMA meetings across the country with all parties that are supporting the local franchise owners, and everyone gets in a room and talks and hashes it out. For Squeeze, where we're small, we have 12 locations. That means frequent Zoom calls, but it does still mean all hands on deck. Everyone who's supporting this business is on the call, open lines of communication, transparency as to how decisions are getting made. Here's the why behind the what, so that it's not a quarterly, reveal of here's what's changed, but it's really you are a part of the changes as we're making them. So it's very much a show your work kind of environment, and we build it together. So I think that's one of the great things that we are building with Squeeze is just a super collaborative kind of environment with our franchise owners. Our owners bring so much expertise to the table and just varying backgrounds, but very advanced thinking, not just about the squeeze business, but about different industries and different verticals within the industries. So it's really fun to collaborate with them and just have them pull from different experiences that they might have outside of squeeze, but they bring that expertise into our conversations, and everyone really kind of works together to put the best product together for our guests.
That's really cool. That's exciting. I'm curious as well, like, what does that communication platform look like to be able to connect with all the different franchisee owners?
So we just bought the business in November of 2025, like you said. And so we're early in our journey together with these franchise owners. And so right now it's a weekly call cadence of owner call, weekly call cadence with general managers, Slack channels across the 12 shops, centralized Slack channels. Really, everyone is talking to everyone at all times, but that's really the way that it's meant to be in a franchise system. And I think some franchise systems, when you get large, like a Burger King system, you end up really kind of building at the top and sending the message down. And franchisees and guest facing roles are the last to know. And in this instance, because we are almost in startup mode, we do have the ability to bring the guest facing opinions to the front of the conversation and really lead with the whole team's involvement so that we're truly building things together, and it's not the shops being the last to know, but the shops are the first to know because they have the ideas, and we're simply bringing them to life from, the top down. But really everyone's in it together, and the flow of communication is equally from the bottom up as it is from the top down.
That's really fun. That's cool. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious too with the dynamic of even taking on Squeeze, right? So you guys took it over in November 2025. When you took it on, did you dive in and have you made culture changes? Have you made like changes in how the business is operating on the front end in stores, or were you keeping it the same? I'm curious what decisions you guys made and why you decided to make those decisions.
Yeah, there were a lot of changes that we tackled very quickly. I think it's hard whenever you do take on a business. You want to honor what is there that is good, and you want to hold on to that, and you want to acknowledge it, and you want to hold space for it and say, yes, this stays. But then you really also want to dig into everything that is not just kind of the low hanging fruit things that you want to evolve, but you really start to get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, if this is changing, then this also needs to change. And sometimes when you're tackling one change, it really makes sense to let's just use this as a moment to embrace that it is a new era, and let's wipe a lot of the slate clean. And if the slate is clean, then what do we want to build? And so stepping into Squeeze, the great thing is that there was so much alignment around the brand is beautiful and fun, and guests love it and connect with it. And generally, the inside of the shops feel so welcoming and bright and warm for our guests. And so everyone around the table was nodding, okay, yes, that stays. And then you start to dig into the other things. And so operationally, like how are we going to evolve our offering? We evolved our pricing within the first 4 months. We evolved our product offering and how you're able to add additional things onto it. We tackled that within the first 6 months. Within the first month, we changed our CRM and how we were messaging out to people. And so really it started to become a very much a startup environment of let's evaluate what we want to change, let's make changes, let's fast evolve those changes to make them even better. And culturally, that's very different than what was. And so anytime you're walking into a new company and you're tasked with make change and evolve this into something that we know it can be, you do have to go through that process of like what stays and what goes. And sometimes the culture is a piece that needs to go. And we've battled through that over the last 6 months, and I think are coming out in a stronger place because of it. But it is not an easy thing to do. And I think there's so many learnings that I'm gonna have 2020 hindsight. You're gonna kind of have that 1 year look back of like, wait, what did we just do? Like that was crazy. There were so many things that changed. But that's exactly how you learn is you dig in, you make changes, you learn, you grow. And along the way, there's just so many great nuggets and so many great learnings that in this instance, like we all were able to kind of experience together. So it has been a lot of fun.
Nice. And I'm curious too, because I know, when we do cultural shifts in companies, that sometimes people have a hard time moving forward with the transition in culture. So, with the franchisees, how have you guys been able to manage that shift with some of the individuals who perhaps may want to stick to the old culture, but are kind of caught up in this new dynamic?
Yeah, it's been interesting because looking at the company values, all of those are true. And so again, as you sit around the table and you're like, what stays? You look at the company values, you're like, yes, okay, that's true. But how those came to life culturally, how those were executed across the business really was a piece that needed to change. And so before stepping into Squeeze, I really kind of felt like your company values really set your culture. But there's so much more minutia to it than that. And there are culture keepers in your company. And I think the culture keepers are meant to bring those core values, the company values, the brand values, however you define them. Your people are meant to like really breathe life into those values. And depending on who the culture keepers are, you could either have life, breathed into the core values, or you can have pretty toxic execution breathed into the core values. And you really need to be careful to not necessarily throw away the core values if they are true to your organization, but really dig in with your team to say that's not how we're going to execute on them.
Hmm.
And the way that we really tried to filter out like how are we actually going to bring these to life is reward those who were the culture keepers who were bringing it to life correctly, and applaud the collaboration and applaud the positivity and applaud the willingness to change, and vice versa, where we had people who were holding on to old ways and we had people who were working at a pace that was an older pace and didn't see how fast we were looking to move with the changes we were looking to make. We had to let people go early on. And And that's a hard part of any company transition, but it's critically important when you're trying to grow your company culture. And especially when you're small, every single individual, their energy plays into your company culture. And so one person's energy is off, that throws your whole environment off. And so it's really important to be selective with your team, to course correct very quickly with people if their energy is off. And if need be, you have to look at your team and you have to make those tough decisions to say, like, we can't
Mhm.
keep this kind of energy that's actively working against what we're trying to build, especially when you're trying to build quickly. You don't have time to wait for someone's energy to correct itself. So, yeah, I think that's definitely one of our month 1, 2, 3 kind of lessons.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. If you're really resonating with what we're talking about and want to get clear on what truly drives you, what your core values are, head on over to my website. In the tools and tips section, there is a free values assessment. And this is a quick exercise that's going to help you to uncover what actually matters most with you so you can lead and live with more clarity, fulfillment, and momentum. Yeah, very cool. And I think it's interesting too, the dynamic that you shared where when you came in, it wasn't about changing the core values, but looking at like who is actually demonstrating this, embodying this in the way that we find empowering versus like the disempowering form. And how do we course correct instead of changing everything, but just shifting the dynamic of these being empowered instead of disempowered. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Well, and we're mostly a remote team. And so when you have a remote team, it's even harder to align your culture and to have alignment around the goals of the organization. And so again, where you see someone who's not in alignment, who's actively kind of working against the mission, who's showing up just in a down kind of energy, it's really difficult because you don't have additional face-to-face moments throughout the day around the water cooler to check in and say, "Hey, like, are you really feeling that?" Or you really have your Zoom call moments to catch energy,
Mm.
and then and that's it. And so where energy is off on a remote team, it's even more important to nip it in the bud and to make sure it's course corrected, because culture can go awry so fast, and you just can't have a misaligned culture when you're trying to make like operational changes really quickly.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, getting everyone on the same team together. Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm curious, I'd love to like flash back a little bit to the Club Pilates days because it's, significant amount of locations and countries, and you were a CMO. So what would you say that running a brand at that volume taught you that you've been able to bring into something smaller?
Whenever I got the offer to go and take that role, my greatest challenge to myself, and I started to challenge my team to it as well, is if this brand is going to grow as fast as the number projections are saying it's going to grow. And when I started, we had 200 open and 900 sold. And they also had plans to buy 9 other brands. But I thought, even if they don't buy the other brands, I still have 700 locations that I have to get open, and that I have to grow and support throughout the next few years. And I just challenged myself to keep a growth mindset of like, if the brand is going to grow, I've got to grow. And so every single thing was just learning opportunity, learning opportunity. But what are we doing? What are we doing right? What are we doing poorly? And the amazingly toxic thing about working in franchising is there's always someone who's telling you what you're doing wrong, because franchisees will always tell you something that they see that could be done better. So if you go into it with a growth mindset, you're constantly presented with opportunities to improve. You don't have to wait for annual reviews to improve. You every day get feedback of like, what about this? What about this? And it can be so draining at times when you get into a system with hundreds of owners and you have them all kind of looking at you and criticizing the things that you're doing, and sometimes the criticisms conflict, and then it kind of becomes, am I confident enough in what I'm doing to hold to what I believe is right and share the why and execute on it and then show what the result was, and so I got into a good cadence with the owners of, let's talk through the why, let's do it together, and then we're going to execute, and then we're going to look at it and we're going to say, did it work, did it not? And I ended up, by the third year that I was there, we had a lot of really good playbooks that were based on executing in that way and then having real results around, okay, we ran this promotion, it did this. We had this media, it did this, and everything was really on a dial and was able to be manipulated to drive the business forward in a way that made the owners profitable and made the franchisor profitable. So I think generally the greatest learning was just going in knowing I didn't know anything and be ready to learn everything, and then be ready to be told by owners that I didn't know anything and had to go through the cycle again. And I think I came out of that 3 years just feeling unbreakable in what I knew and what I knew how to execute in support of small businesses across the country, driving traffic to brick and mortar businesses. I left there feeling like there was no one in the country doing it better than we were doing it. And I think at that point, you feel like you did everything you set out to do in terms of approaching it with a growth mindset and learning everything that you could learn along the way. And the 3 years, it was like an MBA for local store marketing and for marketing in a franchise environment.
That's really cool. It sounds like an amazing personal development journey, right? Where I think most people, when they hear about franchises, they don't think like you're going to get hundreds of people telling you you're doing a bad job. I'm sure you get a lot of people saying you do an amazing job, but also that you're doing a bad job. And how do you manage that personally? What are you doing with that information? And it sounds like you had a lot of fun figuring that out and empowering yourself through the process. It's very cool.
And it still is to this day. That's the whole game. Whether you're in a franchise environment or whether you're in a corporate environment, the game is just personal development and getting as much out of the opportunity for your own growth as you're putting into the opportunity for company growth. So I approach everything in that way. And yes, Club Pilates was great learning for me, but I'm already learning a lot with Squeeze. The learning keeps on happening if you're open to it and if you actively pursue it. In a franchise environment, it comes to your email, it comes to your desk for sure. But I think that's the nature of the game. And that's, why it's one of the reasons why franchising is a great space to work in.
Yeah, it's very cool. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious too, because even this dynamic of going through and doing marketing behind other people's brands for so long, you then decided to build KickHouse from scratch. So tell me a little bit why you decided to go off and build this business, which you did wind up selling. So I'd love to kind of get into that dynamic too.
A lot of that starts with the timing because I was at 615 locations with Club Pilates. We had 300 more to open, to get to the 900 number. And COVID happened. And so, you kind of like look at your path and you're like, I could stay in this and rinse, repeat what I've been doing and be successful with it. And you know, do a good job with it. But would I necessarily feel fulfilled in terms of scratching that growth mindset itch? Like, would I feel like I was able to grow my own skill set, staying in that role? And at the time that COVID started, I was approached by an investor who was looking at getting into the kickboxing space. And I just had I had to weigh the decision of like, do I stay stable and safe, or do I dive in again to something where I don't know anything and would need to learn everything? And I chose the boot camp kind of approach of dive in and learn the next kind of role, learn the next part of the game. And that's really what led me to be CEO of KickHouse. And stepping into that seat, really never being a CEO before, never having the pressure of all of the decisions, let alone just the marketing decisions. It was just a whole set of years of learning how to lead and learning how to make good decisions and learning how to make absolutely terrible decisions and recover from them. And especially through COVID, learn how to make what was the right decision and have it still not go the way that you wanted it to. And that was just a whole new set of learnings that I hadn't experienced before. So again, every opportunity, every role kind of comes with its new set of challenges and new learnings all along the way.
That's cool. And I'm curious too, when you started KickHouse, did you know that you wanted to sell it, or was that just an opportunity that arose after a certain point?
The goal was definitely to exit at some point. We definitely envisioned having a couple hundred open and then selling, but as you remember, the timing around COVID was, oh, this will be 2 weeks and then it'll be over. Oh, this will be 2 months and then it'll be over. And then you blink your eyes and it's 2 years later and you're still impacted, especially in the fitness space. The fitness industry was devastated during the COVID era, just not just because of the consumer demand, but because of the all of the varying rules across the country and the rules would change. And it really went area by area, zip code by zip code of who was doing what and who was allowed to do what. And as an owner, a small business owner running a local shop, you really had to evolve,
Mhm.
and stay like every week something was changing. And it's really difficult to run your business that way and then also navigate the support that was coming from the government, navigating like all of the local rules. And so it was just a really hard time to be in this space. But I'm proud of the work that we did during that time and the results that we put on the board, in terms of revenue for the shops that were in with us through that time. And, I think the decision to exit was accelerated by COVID and just by the fact that like we'll be stronger if we're together with another brand, with more
Mhm.
resources and we can kind of share resources and navigate all of this together. So it was not the it was not the planned exit at all, but I think you make the best decisions you can at the time, and and then you just take the next step, do the next thing.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've seen that too a lot of times where brands they decide to go and be acquired by another company just because it does give them more empowerment within their just entire way that they're operating. So it's a cool strategy. It's fun.
Well, in working with GoSaga, that's definitely vision with GoSaga is to have multiple brands. And so, we have Squeeze Massage, we're acquiring Revity 3, which is a women's kind of centric fitness brand based in Wilton, Connecticut. And we're looking for other brands to acquire. So there is a benefit to a shared services kind of model or a conglomerate model, especially in the franchising space. So that's definitely something that we're actively pursuing and trying to duplicate, minus the COVID impact, of course.
Yes, of course. We hope again. Yeah, we hope. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm curious too, because when it came time to move forward, instead of building from scratch again, you went with Squeeze and Go Saga. So what was the thing that inspired you to work with acquisition instead of building from scratch again?
One of the things that I learned from working on Club Pilates was as a marketer, I was driving traffic to a four-wall operation that I knew the experience when someone would get there would be solid. And that took a lot of pressure off of me as a marketer because I really needed to worry about the top of the funnel, coming into a conversion. Once someone was in and converted, they stayed. And I really kind of saw the squeeze opportunity in a similar vein where when someone got to the shop, any of the shops across the country. The look is great, the brand is great, the four-wall operation is great, and it really kind of it takes pressure off of you as a leader to fix everything.
Mm.
You really have to focus on certain things, like small things to fix. And they're very specific in specific parts of the business. And so it's not a complete, oh, let me like rebuild everything. It's no, there's really four important pieces in franchising, and the brand has two. And
Mm.
so then I kind of look at my own skill set and say, can I fix the other two? And I do believe that I can, because the things that are missing in the other two are really my areas of expertise and what I've excelled at historically in a marketing seat. So, I think as you're looking at acquisitions, you do have to look at not just what the acquisition opportunity is, but you have to have that self-reflection moment of, does my skill set align with what needs to be fixed in this business in order for it to be mega successful? And in this instance, the answer is yes. And so that's why we acquired the business. That's why we took that leap in November.
Awesome. And I feel like you might have shared this a little bit in the beginning, but I'm curious, what are the two things that you are focused on? That's your expertise, that you're like, these are the two things about the franchise that I can and am fixing.
So if you think about building a marketing funnel, the funnel starts really wide at the top, and it's really just awareness of the brand. And then you get someone into, like, I'm interested in the brand, then I'm considering the brand, then I'm trying the brand. And once someone tries the brand, then you get into like a conversion kind of aspect of, whether you call it a sales process, whether you call it retention, however you want to refer to it in your business. But so my expertise at Club Pilates was building a funnel that was a predictable funnel for the hundreds of locations that were open across the country,
Mm.
and delivering predictable results through that funnel. And some of that is paid media and, paid marketing channels. Other parts of it are more organic, around organic social media, or press around the brand. Like, you kind of play with a lot of different things to create the numbers that are behind the funnel. In terms of the sales process, especially in fitness, we're very aware of the fact that people don't want to work out inherently. Most
Pretty
people don't.
much.
You and I do, but most
Yeah.
people don't. And you have to really have a sales process that's aggressive, but yet also inviting and empathetic. And so, like, having an aggressive sales process, meaning like a lot of outreach to a person and just reminding them, Carly, we're here for you. Whenever you're ready to try Pilates, like, we're here, come and take a free class, whatever the case may be. The following week, hey there, like, what's your fitness goals? What are you working on? We're here for you. We have this workshop coming up. Come in, see us. Reminder, 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 reminder. And culturally, that very much exists in fitness and in fitness sales. In massage, it really doesn't exist as a sales centric kind of process.
Mhm.
And I think some of the thinking is maybe similar to how some of the fitness industry thinks, where I love this, so you must love this. And I think everyone would agree, like, most people love massages, but most people also have, like, difficulty carving the time for themselves, or
Mhm.
balancing the self-care with picking up the kids, with running their 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 days, running their households, however like, all the things that people are busy with. It's difficult, and I think sometimes people feel guilty about taking that time to themselves. And so, just like in fitness, we're reminding people, like, it's important to do this for yourself. Like, health is wealth. Like, you're going to be able to show up better for your kids if you're healthy. It's exact same in the massage space, where you're going to be able to show up in a better way if you have this balance of work hard, recover hard. It's okay to take the time to recover. It's okay to take the time for self-care. It's not selfish. It's not overindulgent. It's it's important. And that's kind of the education journey that we're on in our sales process is,
Mhm.
can we get people educated around the benefits of massage, but then also educated around how important recovery is to having that life in balance. So those are really the two things that we're working on, is like a strong marketing funnel, funneling into a sales process that gives people permission to have a balanced approach to their day.
Hey everyone, it's Carly. So, if this conversation is really hitting home and you want to get a real snapshot of what's working and what's not in your business, head on over to my website in the tools and tips section and you can have the business performance health check. In just about 15 minutes, you're going to see where the friction is and where your next growth opportunity lies within your company. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's very cool. Very fun. I definitely agree with that. And it's something I love to practice. And I'm curious too, because as you mentioned, Squeeze is owned by GoSaga and you guys are taking on other brands. So what do you guys do with GoSaga to either stay connected with the other brands? How do you guys collaborate, work together, feed off each other? I'm curious how that is organized.
It's definitely a shared services kind of structure. So processes that are built for one brand ideally pull across to the other brands, even if they need to be tweaked or adjusted, language changed. If you think about a sales process, just as an example, like we were just talking about, a sales process for Squeeze Massage might look different than a sales process for the Revity 3 studio, but the gist of it is the same, the platform will be the same, and maybe you're making language tweaks, you're making edits, but the bones of it are the same. And so then the team that's supporting that process can support two processes that are distinct processes supporting two different brands, but it's because the bones are the same, it's easier for them to support in those two directions or three directions or four directions. Like you can start to spread your resources across additional brands because that expertise is the same, supporting the same kind of elements, just in different brand environments.
Nice. That's very, very cool. And I'm curious as well, when you look at Squeeze, I know that it was built by the founders of Dry Bar and they really disrupted an industry. When you guys looked at Squeeze as a company, what did you start to see with Squeeze that was also kind of doing the same thing, disrupting the industry? What was their major differentiator that you guys have really been pushing forward on?
Squeeze is definitely guest forward, and it's empowering that guest forward experience through technology. So there's a pretty intensive booking process and and checkout process as well. So when you go to a Squeeze and you get your massage, you truly can check out via the app, and you don't have a moment at the front desk fiddling for your credit card, talking to the person. Maybe there's phone calls coming in, and all of a sudden your really relaxing experience just got totally disrupted. With Squeeze, you really can truly just like walk in and float out. And that's something that we pride ourselves in, and just having like the tech be enabling that kind of very relaxing experience, both as you're coming in and as you're leaving the shops.
That's fun. That's very cool. And I'm curious too, when you think about just Squeeze and moving forward with Squeeze, what is your guys' long-term goal? Like, what do you envision for the future of Squeeze?
We definitely envision hundreds of squeeze massage locations across the country, and hopefully there will be one in a community near you. You can ideally find one on squeezemassage.com. There's a whole map of our locations. And if you don't see one, you always could become a squeeze massage owner.
That is fun. I'm curious too, because when you guys are looking for owners, I know just like when we look for clients and you're looking for that specific funnel, it's the same when you're trying to find an owner. So when you guys think about an owner, what are the values that you're looking for in someone? What are the qualities that you look for in someone when you're seeing if they're a fit to have one of these locations?
Definitely having franchise experience with a different brand always helps, because you already kind of know how the work flows. Like, the line of divide between franchisor and franchisee. But we also are looking for people that kind of embody the squeeze values like we were originally talking about, and just people who kind of share this vision with us. And so if it is someone who has never been in a franchise before but really has that desire to work in what they love, and make something great for their community, we really do kind of look for that brand alignment and that love and care for the brand and for the platform. And if there's that with an entrepreneurial kind of drive and interest, we really, as a franchisor, are then just tasked to skill up that person to be able to bring a successful shop to life for their community. So it really is, it's meant to be an environment that we can bring someone into and teach them everything that they need to know in order to run their own business successfully.
That's cool. And I'm curious too, because when we talk about like the teaching dynamic, what does teaching a franchisee look like on the back end in Squeeze? Is there like pre-recorded stuff? Is it in person? Is it a little bit of both? Do they connect with each other?
Yeah, there's definitely franchise training right out of the gate. There's general manager training right out of the gate. And most franchise systems have that. I think what makes Squeeze special is the amount of collaboration and training that happens in real time as we're going. And so, as we're bringing new owners into the system, we do want people who are open to actively collaborating, not just with the franchisor, but with the other owners, either in their market or elsewhere, both as people they can learn from and people they can teach. Everyone brings a different skill set to the franchise. And so I think the greatest franchise systems really like tap into the franchisees as experts in whatever their professional background is, and you all kind of grow together. So we're definitely looking for those kind of growth minded kind of individuals, and people who really want to collaborate to build something great.
That's cool. And I'm curious too, when you are looking for these people or the people that are already on board, do you find that they're naturally starting to connect with each other? Or is it something that you also help cultivate in the beginning to kind of give a little push to bring people together?
There's definitely natural collaboration that happens and natural alignment that happens between different types of owners, and I tend to just let it happen organically, and I think it's best if they kind of find their people, and hopefully all of the people are their people, but there's definitely different cliques and different groups who kind of talk about different things together, and that's the way it should be. We have some committees that we facilitate the conversations, but there's always the conversations after the conversations, the calls after the calls. And so for them to have those the people that they can call to brainstorm, to have ideas, to talk through different things, to problem solve, everyone benefits when there are those lines of communication.
I imagine you guys get some pretty cool feedback from some of those like dynamics after the calls. After the calls, you guys probably get some really cool feedback from those.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm all about it. All the owners have my cell phone. Like we're at that size. Even at Club Pilates though, when I had hundreds of owners, everyone had my cell phone. And so you'll be on calls and people will text you something like, "Oh, you just said blah blah blah, but what about this?" And it's such a fun, fast-paced environment to work in, because you don't have to wait to send something out into the market to get market feedback on it. You get feedback internally immediately. And ideally, if it's a good, healthy culture, that feedback helps you make your product or your service even stronger before you go to market. It's fun to kind of have that kind of work family that you're working within, because it's constant communication, constant chatter.
That's cool. And I'm curious too, because as you guys are moving into this, next transition, you guys have been really pushing hard to get everything aligned and really in order and organized on the back end during the acquisition. And when you start to move forward, what are some of the next steps of the foundation that you're building right now that is starting to set you up to be able to have the hundreds of locations?
We're looking to partner with different brands and bring in the right products for, from a retail perspective and also from products that support our services. And
Mhm.
we're starting to do that now as we're recording this episode, but that's going to be an ongoing kind of aspect of our business is just what products we endorse and what products we bring into our shops to sell. In terms of going forward, I think we're going to be looking for, there's certain markers that you see as a franchise is growing, and you want to get to 25 locations, and you want to have certain momentum when you get to 25, and then the next milestone is 50, and you start to like, can we keep on growing and learning through the first 50? And really continue to evolve the model and improve the model through the first 50. And once you're there, you kind of like pause and you take a look around and you're like, all right, we're pretty dialed in, right? And if everyone around the table is nodding their heads like, yeah, we're dialed in, great. Now we explode in growth. And then, you're opening 10 a month, you're really like looking to grow quickly at that point, and that's one of the great things about the franchising space is you can grow really fast, but we don't want to grow faster than what we're ready for, and we don't want to grow faster than what the business can support and hold. And right now we're in a reset phase. So
Mhm.
we're not trying to grow too fast right now. We're trying to grow in ones and twos and bring the right people in really strategically. And if next year we open 5 to 10, great. We're like hitting that 25 kind of mark. And then, then it starts to get fun.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like then you guys will have the foundation in to start to move a bit more quickly.
Absolutely. Like you have to have a strong foundation in franchising because even if you get to 25 and things are rocky, the the guests start to see or the customers start to feel that, and
Mhm.
then the market starts to respond to it, and your growth starts to slow. And
Mhm.
it's really difficult in a franchise environment to reboot a franchise and reset it and get it ready for growth again. And you just don't want to have the momentum shift into a downward type of momentum. You really want it to be up, 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 up the full way. And I think that's the goal always is just to have that upward momentum. And one of the ways that people lose hold of that upward momentum is trying to sprint up with the momentum, and you just stall, unfortunately. And we've seen it with other concepts. Like I've been in the franchising world since 2008, so I've seen what not to do, and we're excited to bring it to life in a way that's sustainable and also like sets everyone up for big growth over the next few years.
That's very cool. And I'm curious as well, like when you think about even the expansion, right? So you're talking about getting to the 25. Are there different levels of the franchising where it's like, okay, it's going to change the complexity and we have to kind of rebuild foundation again at 100 or solidify it to a greater degree at 200? Or is it sort of once you get to that 25, things start to free flow more easily?
You're always evolving your business. You're always trying to optimize things, but when you get to 50, the core building blocks are there. Or if you think about it in like a baking capacity, like the cake is baked, the icing is on the cake, and you're simply changing the decorations. You're really not messing with the core ingredients of your product. So, I think leading into that moment, we have a lot of freedom to continue to play with the recipe and really make sure all of the right ingredients are there, all of the right people are on the team, all of the right products are in the shops, all of the right services are on the menu. We have those things to work on and make sure they're fully dialed in. But when you get to 50, you should be like pretty set, and you should be like, okay, this is what we do, and then you go and repeat it like as many times as you can.
That's cool. I imagine if you were not set, that would be a bit of a nightmare to have that many locations and not be
Well,
prepared.
and
Uh,
some of that is just having alignment with your ownership groups as well.
yeah.
If you've built the first 50 and given ownership groups a lot of leeway and not had alignment with the model, not had alignment with the growth strategy, not had alignment with, where's their flexibility, where is there not, you could get to 50 and really look around and not have a repeatable model. And so there are so many examples of that. And unfortunately, when you get to that place, you do really need to reset at 50 and say, okay, circle the wagons. Like, we have to rebuild this and get specific on exactly what is this, because when you go to squeeze massage in Studio City, you should have the same experience as if you go to squeeze massage in Rogers. And you have to have that consistency really in order to be a great franchise. So that's our goal, is to be a great franchise. And I think we have so far like the right people on the bus and the right franchisees in the mix. And I think as we're bringing new franchisees into the mix, the goal is just like they add value. They don't slow us down at all. They help us go faster.
That's very exciting. And I really appreciate you coming today. This was really fun. It was really cool to hear about the business, everything that you're up to. So if someone wants to find out more information about you or the company, where should they go?
They can visit squeezemassage.com. They could find me on LinkedIn. I'm at Jessica Yarmey, and I'm at Jessica Yarmey on Instagram and all the other social platforms as well.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to put those in the show notes too. And if anyone was inspired by the conversation, if you learned something, feel free to share it with someone else that you think would be inspired by it as well. And thank you again for coming, Jessica. I really enjoyed chatting with you about this.
Thank you so much, Carly. You're great.